Alright, so today we are going to be replacing the steering rack on this IS300 because my steering rack right now is kind of messed up. My catcher is at 7.9, so it should have a lot of self-steer, but right now when you turn the wheel a little bit to the left, it just stays there. And some of you might know I did snap my lower control arm during winter jam mid-drift, and I think it messed up my rack. There's no plane in the rack, power steering works fine. Yeah, I don't know what it is, so shout out to Dario for giving me this rack, or you know, giving me for a good deal, and hopefully get this car back on the road and ready to drift. We got this car ready to drift, probably hit another event in next month or so. So yeah, let's get started. All right, so first things first, what you want to do is make sure your steering wheel is centered. So let's hop in the car, get it pretty centered. So get my keys. Right here, and just center the steering wheel so that way when the car is, when you put the new rack in, it's perfectly aligned. So just all right, so next mark your tie rod, so when you put it back in you know exactly how many threads to put on. So I'm gonna mark it right here, some white marker, just like that. Same to both sides. All right, first things first is you want to, you know, prep your steering rack, the new one, take off anything you don't need. So we're actually going to just take off the boot and keep the boot because it's a good boot. And we're going to take off the inner tie rods while it's on the car, so I have some leverage when the rack is mounted. But for now, you're just going to take this off. It's like a little clip. Just got to pry it off. So we're going to pop the ball joint out. Hopefully you guys can see it from right there. Ball joint bolt is out. Now you can lower it. Take this out now and put it aside because you're going to use it later, unless you're replacing it. And then you can put a new one on. It's a long one because of my angle kit. And now you're going to want to take off this boot right here, and we're going to take off the inner tie rod. All right, now I got the rack out, or not the rack. Now I got the boot out. Now you're going to take off the inner tie rod, and I have an inner tie rod tool. So what you're going to do is find the right size that fits over the inner tie rod. You see a little kind of cutouts for it. These things come with different sizing that fit over it. Definitely not that one. That could be it. Let's try another one. Nope. So it is this one. So we're going to slide it over like that. Get this tie rod tool. It goes over and it locks into the little arms that are sticking out. Can't see right now because so after you get it in right there, get a breaker bar and twist it off just like that. All right, so now do the same thing to the other side, and then we can start pulling the rack out. All right, so next thing you want to do is to take off the bracing right here. So you have like 3 bolts on this side, 1, 2, 3, 2 in the middle right there, and then 3 on that side, and then you can access the steering rack. All right, so the rest of the process is going to be fairly simple. So you're going to want to remove this hose right here, and then you're going to want to take out this bolt right here, and then last bolt is all the way up there. You see that? That is where the steering column connects to the rack. So we're going to do that first. Loosen these 2 bolts right here that hold the rack to the subframe. So there's one right here and one right at the top, and then 2 on that side. And then we're going to do these last because once you start taking these out, that's when fluid's going to start coming out and make a mess. So yeah, we're going to do that in that order. But right now we're going to check our steering wheel one more time to make sure everything is in place. All right, so pretty simple. I was able to get a 12mm with an extension to get that bolt out right here. Sorry, lighting is really bad because the garage door is open, but loosen that up. And now we're gonna want to take these off, which I believe these are 14. Yep, 14. Top one's a 14. Should be the same on that side. All right, so I'm taking off the inner tie rods on the new rack. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure the distance from the end of here to right here, end of the rack to here. And so that way, because that one is centered, this one is not. And so I have to make sure that's centered and this is centered. If not, it's gonna be, your steering wheel is gonna be pretty off. And the one side is gonna have more turn than the other. So yeah, we're gonna take off the inner tie rods, measure that side, measure the new old one, and then, you know, put the new one in that spot, and it should be relatively close. It's like about 1.5 on each side, but they're exactly the same length. So I measured it, and now we're gonna take out this rack. Everything is finally good to come out. I loosened all the bolts. You can see the rack is hanging right there. I put a jack to support it. Last thing I need to do is take off this hose right here. And you can see I loosened this bolt right here. And once you start taking it out, it should slide out of the steering column. If you loosen it all the way, you can see how much I loosened it on the bolt. Kind of right there. Trying to get a better look right there. So we're gonna pull this out and then loosen this bolt. And it's gonna be messy, but no choice. All your fluids might come out, so be careful. All right, old rack is out. And this is the new one, so we're gonna swap over the bushing. All right, so I got the rack back in. It was a pretty much reverse order. And the easiest way that I could figure out how to do it was to have 2 jack stands. So I have one right there, one right here. And then kind of put the steering rack on jack stand because it was hard to carry it by myself and everything was covered in oil and slippery. And then I mounted that side first because that was the easiest to align. And then I was able to move this enough where the holes were kind of lined up, and that's when I knew I could slide in the steering column right there. And after you slide that in, make sure you slide it all the way in, and then after that you can line up this bolt right here and then screw it in and screw in the top, and then you can tighten everything down. So yeah, I gotta tighten that side, this side, and the bolt for the steering column, and yeah, we should be good to go. I'm gonna fill it up and bleed it and make sure there's no air in the system, and then we can put everything back together. So now we filled up the reservoir with power steering fluid, and we're gonna make sure that the car has enough rotation on each side if it feels even. So we're gonna spin the steering wheel all the way to the left, all the way to the right, making sure the rack is centered. That's center. Center. Yeah, looks about center to me. So just keep spinning the steering wheel back and forth so that way we can get some power steering fluid in the car. See how it went down? So just keep spinning it back and forth because I'm pretty sure the rack is pretty much dry. Back, forth. Make sure you don't turn on the pump yet, because if you do, you're gonna ruin the pump with all the air in there. Make sure there's no leaks. Something's leaking. Yeah, that spill was just from the reservoir overflowing from all the bubbles coming up, because there was a lot of air bubbles, but spilled up, not too much. And then spin it back and forth again. All right, now you put everything in reverse order. So put your tie rods in, your inner and outer. Make sure you line it up to that white marking that you had earlier. So that way your alignment is somewhat in the right spot. I'll still get alignment anyways. So we're gonna get this side and that side done, and then we're gonna bleed the power steering pump. All right, so now we're gonna bleed the power steering. So just turn your steering wheel back and forth like 20 times, 20, 30 times. Just keep doing it because you don't want air in your air lines and your compressor. You don't want air in your power steering pump, so you just want to keep moving it back and forth, making sure that there's enough power steering inside the reservoir. And after you do it so many times, and then you can start the car. And then start moving it back and forth, making sure that there's enough stuff. Still enough oil in there, so maybe put a little bit more. All right, well, that's how you swap your steering rack. And I went for a drive, and the problem still persists. And I'm doing some research. I think my lower ball joints are messed up, even though I did replace them like 3 months ago. But after the accident, it might have bent the lower ball joints. So, yeah. You guys get a how-to guide on how to replace the steering rack, but I didn't fix my problem. But that's working on cars. So, the steering rack is actually vibrating sometimes. It's weird. Like, you turn it and it has like a weird vibration. Don't know if this rack is bad. So I did waste the whole day, but at least I know it's not the rack, and I'm pretty sure it's a lower ball joint. So we're gonna order some from Excessive, get those installed, and see if that's the problem. If not, I'm throwing away all the suspension and going back to my original setup, because this is a no bueno. I don't like how it feels. It feels like shit. So we're gonna figure it out. That's the new goal for this next coming series. So figure out this issue where this car would not self-steer. And my caster is good. Yes, it is. I'll show you guys. I have caster arms, and they're set at 7.9 right here. So caster is not the issue. Something is binding, and it's either the lower ball joint, lower control arm, or this rack is still bad, but I doubt it.